So I wanted to avoid the 20-minute long to 30-minute long video essays that you're starting to see spark up and just tell you guys straight to the point, straight to the chase, that Nintendo finally has talked about their next generation console. The only official word that we have from Nintendo themselves is that they ended up going into a meeting with their investors and they basically said that they wanted to have the transition from the Nintendo Switch to their next generation console as seamless as possible. And so they're going to end up carrying over our Nintendo Switch Online account to that next console. But that's it. That's 100% all the information that we've heard. Now, the funny thing is that more than likely we're going to end up seeing this console appear next year. Maybe we'll even see an announcement with pre-orders opening up at the last Nintendo Direct later on this year, just because they always have one during the holidays and Nintendo's been popping off lately. The reason why I have a very strong suspicion that next year is when we could end up seeing the new console is because despite all of the rumors and leaks and quote unquote all that crap about a new, more powerful Nintendo Switch coming out, consoles always have a 7-year lifespan, and it's no coincidence that Nintendo is now talking about their next console finally, and next year the Switch turns 7 years old. Now, I did want to share a little bit of my own thoughts and speculation because we don't really know if we're going to end up seeing a simple Nintendo Switch Pro or Super Switch upgrade, which I think a lot of us would be very satisfied with, just because, frankly speaking, the Switch is already one of the best home consoles in my opinion. Maybe not necessarily in terms of power, but just the fidelity of the console and the games that are delivered by Nintendo are just, you know, they're always top notch, right? And so being able to play those games at 60 frames or steady frames would be a godsend for so many of us playing on the Nintendo Switch. However, for better or worse, Nintendo always tries to outdo themselves and always tries to have a gimmick or a reason to justify having a next generation console. They've never ended up doing a simple upgraded, more powerful console, and Nintendo unfortunately isn't really concerned with a more powerful console, even though frankly speaking I think that the Switch Pro in theory should just be a Switch that has DLSS enabled or something, right? The other main reason why I don't think we're just going to get a more powerful Switch is because while the idea of playing games like Tears of the Kingdom in 60 frames is really appealing, as we've seen time and time again with emulated games of Nintendo Switch, those games basically have 60 FPS patches, and then the games usually end up dying because the game is not actually designed around being 60 frames. So Breath of the Wild, for example, when people play it at 60 frames, the physics get all wonky. And the only reason that I'm talking about this is because that would mean that in order for us to play games like Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom and stuff at 60 frames, the game would have either had to come baked in with that patch on the Switch, but it's waiting for the more powerful hardware, or it would mean unrealistically Nintendo would have to go back and systematically patch out some of their most popular games so that they would be able to handle 60 frames, even though the core of the game was not designed around it. And it just seems very implausible to me. Now, another side little theory that I have is the reason that they haven't talked about Metroid Prime 4 is more than likely that's going to end up being maybe a launch title with the next console. Who knows? But maybe it is just going to end up being a more powerful Switch, in which case I would gladly buy it. Like, frankly speaking, just being able to play Nintendo games at higher frame rate would be enough for me.